So I wanted to do a quick tour of my Windhelm home. In preparation for my next video, I've been playing through Oblivion and Skyrim. I'll talk about more of an update at the end of the video, but for now I just wanted to go over this little Nord museum I've basically collected over the course of playing Skyrim. This is just a vanilla playthrough in the DLCs, so everything you see here you're going to find in the base game if you look around enough. I'll start right to left because I kind of have it kind of chronological, so the oldest stuff that you can find that's related to the Nords is back over here, and then as you go further down you'll find some of the more modern stuff, and then I got Mule the Lioness rocking the newest Nord set that you can find in the game. So over here, this is more of the Atmoran section. The Atmorans are the originators that came over from Atmora to escape a civil war led by Ysgramor, but I'll just kind of start from right to left here. So this is the Helm of Ygnoll. He was one of the sons of Ysgramor. He actually forged Wuthrad, which I do have here in the collection, but he died after Sarthal got sacked. And I do have the Sarthal amulet there, so another piece of the history. Sarthal was the first real city founded by humans, I've heard, but that's kind of conflicted because supposedly there's the Needs race, which they mentioned in the MMO, so I haven't played the MMO, so I don't know how the lore works for that now, but I don't really care about the MMO if I'm being honest. But the Helm of Ygnoll is kind of interesting because it can be found in what is probably the first ever burrow of its kind, which are now common throughout all of Skyrim, but it's the first burrow that you would find ever made in Skyrim because it was made by Ysgramor, who was returning after the sack of Sarthal with his 500 companions, and his son died at sea, but they wanted him to be buried in the Atmoran way, which was with those burrows. So we have some skull keys here. These were part of unlocking a priest. It's kind of a weird glitch, but I was able to keep these on me. I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to do that, and they're kind of nice to just display, but unfortunately I learned the hard way. If you drop these items, your followers will fight over them. We'll go over that a little bit later. But on the left here we have the Galder amulet. Galder was a little bit after Ysgramor's time, but supposedly he was an advisor to many of Ysgramor's heirs. But Galder was eventually betrayed by his 3 sons, who were seeking his power, which was supposedly held here in this amulet. Just below that we have a Dragon Priest dagger. So the Dragon Priest religion kind of overtook the shamanistic religion that the original Atmorans had, which included Ysgramor. Ysgramor over here we have his shield, some Nord hero battle axes. One thing that's kind of weird is that you'll see these are ancient Nord or Nord hero battle axes, at least for the reforged ones. The ones I have here are the ones you get by making at the Skyforge at the end of the Companions quest line, but supposedly these are actually Atmoran battle axes, but it says Nord, so I don't know why they made that discrepancy. But we do have a shield of Ysgramor. This isn't mentioned in the lore. I think this was just a toss-in for people who did a one-hander and shield playthrough like I did. So it's really nice that they did that. I typically use this. The model's a little buggy though. You can see it clips through the side there. But down here we have Wuthrad, the famous battle axe of Ysgramor. So even though Ygnoll never got to come back with the 500 companions for vengeance for Sarthal, his axe was paramount to Ysgramor's retaking of Sarthal, and then also their eventual conquest of much of Skyrim. Now this is another one of the original guys who came over. This is actually Azidal's armor. So Azidal came with Ysgramor and sought power, so he wasn't there when Sarthal got sacked, so he was away, but he came back to find the city sacked, and then eventually met Ysgramor back up at Sarthal when Ysgramor returned with the 500 companions and helped him in his conquest, but did go back his own way and seems to have vanished while seeking power. Many of his artifacts are left behind, like this one that you can find in a tomb in Solstheim. The 500 companions are still going today as we move further down. This is the modern companions armor. I feel like this is kind of a nice bridge between the old stuff and the new. You can see the Nords like the animals a little more, so we got a wolf theme going on here that also ties into their lycanthropy. Spoilers, by the way. But you can see the runic styles on that old armor isn't as prominent, but still kind of present in some of the details here on the newer set. I really like this armor set. I just wish the textures were a little better. Like, for example, that wolf kilt looks a little dated already. But if we move further down, there's kind of a weird exception. So the only Atmorans that I knew of before playing the Solstheim DLC were these guys over here. The Atmorans then bred with the local populations and created the Nord race, and were also supposedly part of creating some other races like the Imperial by breeding with locals too. But over here we have the Bloodskull blade. Now, the Bloodskull was a tribe in Solstheim, which was a totally different place from Skyrim. It's over above Morrowind. But supposedly these guys developed on their own, still had that Atmoran influence, they were really successful. It's not clear what happened to them or why they disappeared, but there is still the Skull clan today, which is a much more tribal and traditional group. They're a lot more shamanistic too. They literally have shamans in their group, so that shaman religion that was replaced by the dragon religion never seemed to really hit with these guys, yet there are dragons in Solstheim which seem to have come with Mirak, who came a little after Ysgramor's time. Over here I just have a weapon rack, a collection of some of the unique items you can find from back in the Atmoran days. So Dragon Priest Staff. By this time I think they were ruling over what they did call the Nords. I don't know that they were still called Atmorans at this time, but you can kind of see these textures better reflect like the steel armor set. But the ancient Nord pickaxe here you can find in Solstheim. So a lot of runic details going on here, but I feel like this bow is kind of another tie-in to the modern sets. So as we go into the modern day, from that ancient stuff over there, we see the Nords have kind of come into their own. The set that I'm wearing here is the steel battle plate. And there's a non-runic version of the same set, but the set that I'm wearing here is the one that's a little more Nordic. You can see the runes are still kind of carrying through. There's little details there. It's not as prominent. And there's a lot more furs, I notice, on the new stuff compared to the old stuff. So it doesn't seem like they were as worried about the fur back in the day. But obviously the Nords live in a cold, icy region, so they have a lot more fur going on. But the horns are still there. The runes are still there. And this color palette reminds me a lot of that Nord bow. And sort of the designs a little bit, which is why I feel like it's kind of another missing link between the two. Over here we kind of get into the more modern day stuff. So the Stormcloak officer armor, there's a civil war going on in Skyrim. The Nords, who are well established as their own race now, are at war with the Empire, mostly because they can't worship Talos, who was actually the god emperor who founded the Empire, but the Empire was kind of conned into not being able to worship them anymore by the Thalmor. So the Nords have kind of escaped those shamanistic roots a lot, but I feel like their armor still shows it. So you can see the Stormcloak officer helmet's the bear, kind of like it was in Morrowind. That Nordic set that looked like a bear anyways, kind of carries through here. It's a nice little nod to that old set. As we move further down, this is somewhere between modern and old, but this is kind of more of a carry-on from the Bloodskull blade. This is the Stalrim set, which is what the Nords over in Solstheim were known for, the skulls. This particular set isn't just any Stalrim set though, this is actually Deathbrand's armor. So Deathbrand was a really famous Nord pirate who, while rocking this traditional Solstheim Nordic set, was very famous for being a brutal pirate. He, with his two weapons over here, would supposedly ravage just about anybody in combat. He was excellent in combat, but when it came time that he was getting old and weak, he felt that none of his followers were worthy enough to pass his armor onto, so he scattered his armor all around Solstheim, which you can find. I have the map here. This map is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, which is interesting. But his weapons are more somewhere down here. Once you've collected all 4 pieces, that'll be revealed to you and you can collect them. I do have the wooden mask here, which is just kind of a nod to the Dragon Priest masks. So Dragon Priest still played a big part, especially with Alduin returning, but I didn't really have any displays because this is a vanilla playthrough, so I just put the wooden mask there to kind of like give that illusion. For the most modern Nord armor though, we kind of get over into this stuff here that Mule the Lioness is wearing, but as you can see, like, the bear is much more prominent, especially with Windhelm. The bear is very prominent there. And I think to some extent in Solstheim the bear is also a prominent figure there, just because they also have werebears in that area. Lycanthropy in general seems to play a part, but I'll talk about that a little more later. I did also collect a lot of the texts that you can find in the game related to the Nords. So a few of these actually tie into the armor sets that I've collected here. So for example, Azidal's Descent ties into the Azidal armor right over there. We also have Deathbrand's book right there for him. And we have Ygnol and the Sea Ghost, which ties into the helmet, the Son of Ysgramor's helmet over there. Moving to the very last section that I have for this little museum I've set up, I have Red Eagles Bane, which is in that ancient Atmoran set, but you can kind of see this blacked out, just generally like crappier looking Nord hero sword here. This is the one that you'll typically find in game unless you complete that companion's quest. And then this is the Galder Blackbow. This is one of Galder's son's weapons, one of the sons that betrayed him to try to gain his power. But for the very last item I have here, this is just a random throw-in. It's a broken iron sword handle. I hadn't seen this anywhere else, but I found it at the entrance to Ysgramor's tomb while doing the Companions Guild quest. I just thought it was a neat little item because I hadn't seen it anywhere else. There was a broken blade part to it, but it doesn't like to sit here when I reload the area. Most of this stuff will fly away when I reload, but this one will actually stick in place, which is nice. So I have this little hidden section of my house too. This is normally where the alchemy and enchanting stuff goes, but I've got a few more interesting things back here related to the Nords. So I have the Ghost Blade, which is a unique texture for the ancient Nord sword. I don't believe there's any other translucent swords like this in the game. And then Mirak's Staff here, and Mirak's Sword, who plays a bigger part in Solstheim. But I do have a lot of books about the Daedra, who play a large part, but I do normally keep the lycanthropy books over here too, as lycanthropy, like being a werewolf or being a werebear, seem to have played a big part in the history of both Skyrim Nords and the Solstheim Nords. There are some issues I have with placing stuff around the house like this, so for the most part, pretty much anything that's loose or not really locked down in place into these little display cases here is probably going to fly away. Or in the case of these skulls, when I plop these down, my lovely wife here, Mjolnir Lioness, decided to kill my housecarl over it, as he also wanted them, so I've got him propped up over here. Yeah, definitely not going to be using this save. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something cool. There's always some cool history behind a lot of these more unique sets, which I like. I collected all these items in preparation for a video comparing Oblivion and Skyrim in video essay form. I know there's a kind of a dime a dozen, but I don't feel like people are really breaking down the gameplay elements the way that they should, so I thought I could give my 2 cents there. But in the meantime, I thought this would be a fun little update. I don't really want to make these types of videos consistently, mostly because I don't have the Scandinavian accent for it, but this is just another part of me throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. I wanted to try a whole bunch of different videos through the end of the year, like I mentioned on my Patreon, which you can go check out and read. You can support if you can. That would be wonderful, but I don't really expect anyone to until I have the content up that I really think is gonna help this channel grow. It would help a lot if you share and subscribe. I hope you liked it. If you didn't like it, then fucking get out of my house.